What is up guys, Andy Forrester Dean Runner here. Welcome back to another video, and today I'm giving you guys my first impressions of the ON Cloudeclipse. So sadly, no exciting B-roll for today's video. Both of the runs that I've done testing in this shoe were done in the dark, but I'm excited to share how I tested it. As always, go through a technical overview with this shoe and then share with you guys my first impressions on what On say is their most highest stack shoe that they have ever produced. As always, a very first quick disclaimer. This is a pair of shoes that On Running sent to me for the purpose of review. However, they have no editorial control over this video. They have no idea of my thoughts, and they certainly will not see anything or hear anything from me before you guys get to see it here on YouTube. So with that out of the way, we're going to dive straight in to how I tested it. So as with a lot of daily trainers or higher stack shoes, I'm trying to get into the habit of taking them for an easy run and a moderate run before I give you guys my first impressions, which is exactly what I've done with this shoe. Doesn't always work out, but this is one that I really wanted to, because I had such a great easy run in this shoe that I just wanted to see what it was a little bit like picking up the pace. So the two runs we got done, as I said, a nice easy run. I'm in taper week, so the duration was a little bit less, but got that done, heart rate nice and low, and felt really good. And then for the second run, I took it out for a moderate steady run of an evening, a couple of nights ago now. So yeah, took it out for those two runs, testing it out in my zone 1 and zone 2. And we'll get to the performance of that very shortly in the first impressions. Let's whiz through a technical overview of the shoe, starting with the fact that I went true to size, UK size 13, and it was absolutely perfect, just as per every other On shoe that I've tested this year. We're talking about a 6mm heel to toe drop. We've got 37mm of stack in the heel, 31 in the forefoot, and in my UK size 13, we're talking about 358 grams or 12.6 ounces. And as always, we'll start away at the back of the shoe, work down the shoe, tongue, lacing upper, finish off with the midsole and the outsole. Now this has an engineered mesh upper, which goes all the way around, and at the back here, as we see in most shoes, there's a little bit more structure and a little bit more material being used to make the back section a bit more rigid. However, there's still a good bit of flexion there, so it's enough to make you feel nice and secure, but it's not kind of that stiff and rigid feeling you might get in some shoes that really try and aid you a little bit more with stability, shall we say. It's also got a decent amount of padding around the top there, not too thick, not too thin. Basically, when you put your foot in there, it feels nice and hugged, nice and comfortable. And the more angular cuts here that we see under the ankle collar, basically extremely similar to every other On shoe I've tested this year, and it works really well. It sits under the ankle bone nicely, and this whole back section is just nice and comfortable. It does the job and it ticks the box really nicely. We've got a knitted tongue that's being used, which is attached, gusseted tongue that's being attached medially and laterally. If I look down and inside the shoe, hopefully the B-roll footage will show you, but yeah, it's got wings either side to attach it so that you basically feel like you're slipping your foot into a sock. Very common these days, and it's paper thin at the top, and again when we get down to the laces, there's a bit of padding on the top here. Now we will talk about the lockdown in the first impressions. It took me a bit of time to get used to, but I finally got it sorted, and all is well. First run was a little bit ropey, so I'll explain all of that shortly. In terms of the lacing system, if I hold the laces out of the way, you can see there we're using some wires, a little bit like fly wire that we saw in some of the earlier Nike shoes, to hold the laces in. So we're not talking about the standard eyelet holes. We've got a wider one at the bottom. I'm assuming aiming to kind of like pull the base of the shoe in a bit and get a nice lockdown over the top, and then it gets thinner at the top here. I got a decent lockdown on the second run. As I said, we'll talk about that more shortly, but there is the extra eyelet there if you want to use the runner's knot. As I mentioned, engineered mesh all the way around, very comfortable, very nice and very breathable. Very happy with that indeed. It felt really nice on foot, very comfortable sensation when we got everything going. So yeah, that upper section, big thumbs up. And then we move on to the midsole. We've got a double layer of Cloud Tech engineering going on here, a little bit like the Cloud Stratus, but slightly different. Both of them had the double layer going on. Slanted Cloud Tech pods, as you can see, I mentioned this in a previous video, and I felt it worked quite well. I wondered if they did this because as you kind of land, you're compressing the pods almost like the same way that the momentum's traveling you, rather than having the vertical pods that they usually have. I'd say it aids for a smoother ride. It felt really nice. We'll talk about the ride more, but I just wanted to highlight that. We've got the slanted Cloud Tech pods there, and as I said, double layer of the Helion Superfoam, I should say, and it worked out really nice. A lovely, soft and cushioned midsole ride. Very impressed, and I'll talk about a bit of a a comparison with the Stratus shortly, because similar stack heights, but very different rides in that respect. And then we've got some thin rubber pods. Oh, I should mention there's a speedboard in here as well. You can see there on the base there is that exposed, and we'll talk about that shortly. So that's in there as well, combined with these thin rubber pads on the high wearing areas. Only a couple of runs in, durability, we'll see about that as time goes on. But I've got to say, overall, this bottom section for me was a really good step forward. I love the Stratus, I love the Cloud Flow, I love the Cloud Echo Boom, but this really gave me what I was looking for, which was that lovely soft and cushioned bouncy ride. I heard a lot of people talk about the On Cloud Monster, and I have to say, it's not a shoe I ever tested, but they said, like, if you like that, you'll like this. And I've got to say, I like this, so I probably would like the Monster as well. But overall, yeah, really, really positive stuff in the bottom half of the shoe, and that is it for the tech. So on to the first impressions. How did I find the shoe? I really, really loved it. There are a couple of things that I need to mention, a couple of things that I had issues with in the first run, which I kind of sorted out in the second run, and a couple of things that I want to talk about, paces and stuff in the shoe. But overall, I've got to say, this could be up there with my joint favourite On shoe that I've tested this year, alongside the Cloud Echo Boom 3. This was really, really enjoyable, and something that I've been looking for in my rotation. I did do a video, the last video actually on the channel, that basically talked about, could this take some of the moderate miles? Could this help the Brooks Hyperion Max soak up some of those extra miles? The answer is no after testing, but I'll talk about that shortly. The first thing I want to mention is competitors for this shoe are things like the Bondi 8 from Hoka, the More V4 or V3, whatever version New Balance are on. That's the type of shoe that this is stacking up against. So that's the type of realm that you're looking at. I wanted to do the two tests, as I mentioned at the start, just to see how it handled it. I've had a lot of daily trainers this year that have handled moderate paces at zone 2 with aplomb. They've been really, really good alongside the easy paces. So suddenly they're more of a versatile shoe, and I've had others that don't. And I'll be honest with you, this one didn't really give me what I was looking for when I went to that moderate run. So on the easy run, I had a super low heart rate when I checked all the data when I got back to the car, and I was really, really impressed with it. I mean, it felt great. I barely broke into a sweat on that run, and it was such a nice, comfortable run. I was like, oh man, this is such a good easy day shoe. So the next stage was to test it on that moderate run, see if I could pick up the pace a bit. It didn't really respond the way I liked it to, and I gather from talking to the On reps and people like involved in testing both of the shoes, other people that have tested them both, now I've spoken to them, they're like, yeah, the Monster does have a bit more oomph about it, and you would get a little bit more back from it. This very much is a long, slow distance cruiser. So that answers that question for me. The other thing I want to mention, very much similar to the On Cloud Stratus, is the lockdown. The lockdown, I got a good lockdown eventually in the second run, but after trying to pull this first bit together, you kind of get a bit of bunching here, and then these all cinch down, and then I ended up getting too much pressure along the top of my foot. And so although the easy run was great and it felt good, I did feel a little bit sore at the top of the foot at the end of it. After the moderate run, the second one, I had tweaked it a little bit more, kind of cinched from the bottom again all the way up, and it was perfect. But there was that. But what I noticed in these On shoes this year, in particular the Stratus actually, not the Cloud Flow or the Echo Boom, but the Stratus, both of these have something in common where there's a lot of excess material on the top, and so it's very, very roomy above the shoe. This isn't a shallow shoe that sits like that on the top of the foot. There's a lot of wiggle room along the top there, so you don't always feel like the shoe is hugging the top of your foot. So although the gusseted tongue does a great job at wrapping over the top, I still feel around here that there's a lot of excess material and bagginess. That's the only thing I can think about this shoe that I think On could improve on in future versions, just to make it a more sleek silhouette over the top of your foot. I guess we're running in Saucony shoes a lot. I'm used to that kind of form-fit upper that they produce where everything just hugs and is really, really comfortable. If On could do that with this, it would be just absolutely incredible. But otherwise, that's the only negative, and I think that speaks volumes about the shoe in general. If that's the only negative I can say, which really doesn't impact the ride in any way, shape or form, you can see just how much I enjoyed the shoe. So yeah, after the first initial testing, definitely what I've come to the conclusion of is easy day plodder. If you do a lot of long, slow, easy runs, this is a great shoe for you, and you do a lot of easy runs in your training, this is brilliant. Comfort levels through the roof, this is definitely softer than the On Cloud Stratus. So the Stratus has a little bit of pop to it. That is one of the shoes that could do easy and zone 2 work, zone 1 and zone 2 moderate stuff. I've had some great moderate runs in the Stratus, and it is 8 grams, 6 grams heavier than this. So that's something to bear in mind. That's the difference between having the speedboard placement in the way that it is in the Stratus and a slightly tweaked foam compared to this one, which is very much more of just an easy day ploddy shoe. So if you're looking for a good recovery shoe, this is definitely one to check out. Very, very comfortable indeed. Very much so a one-trick pony. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts on the On Cloudeclipse. Really excited for more runs in this shoe. It's gonna get a lot of use, very, very comfortable, and really just in general impressed with On this year overall. I've really been surprised with how much I've enjoyed their shoes, hearing some of the noise from previous years about some of their shoes being too firm, speedboard snapping, things not going quite right. I really feel like I've jumped in at the right time. This year they've really made some good waves, and I feel they've produced some blooming good shoes, and this is just another one that they can add to their arsenal. The only other one that I'd love to try other than the Monster is the On Cloud Surfer. I've heard a lot of good reviews about that one too, and it would be great to try that. But to be honest with you, I've got all bases covered now with the Stratus, the Eclipse, the Boom Echo, and the Cloud Flow. All of them just absolutely brilliant. So there we go. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you picked this shoe up yet? What do you think of this shoe? Have you got any comparisons with this and the Monster or this and the Stratus? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Please do consider dropping them in the comments below, and I'd love to hear from you down there. That's it from me today, guys. More videos on this being produced on the Extra channel over the next 2 or 3 weeks probably, or I'll take it out for some longer runs, maybe even a long run. We'll see how we go, and I'll definitely try and get some more content out over there on this shoe. That's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving it a like, share it with your friends, and of course subscribe to the channel for weekly running content. I'll see you in the next one. Until then.